Glory at the age of 87, having served the country in several capacities as former Minister of Mines and Steel Development cities in the country as well. He has been described by prominent Nigerians, including the president, of course, the former president and the current president of Nigeria, as a patriot who represented several things, including the unity, fought consistently for the unity of this country and contributed to the constitutional drafting of the country. Until his death, he was Unongo, is renowned in Chiefland and across Nigeria. He holds many positions. Of course, he represents many things to many Benue persons and Nigerians. As he has transited to glory, and activities have been on to lay him to rest tomorrow in his country home. We shall reflect on his life and times, what he represented, the legacies and the lessons that we can draw from them to sustain what he stood for. This is what will be our basis of discussion on perspectives this morning. I have been joined here in the studio by two seasoned analysts who will offer insights on the life and times of the late Wantare Paul Ichull Nongu and other statesmen. First is a public affairs analyst, Reverend Peters Ichull. Is our guest on Perspectives this morning. Welcome to Ihagh Radio, Reverend Ichull.
Thank you very much.
We also have joining us an author and a historical commentator in Benue State, an emerging one, Mr. Terver Adom. Welcome to Perspectives, Mr. Adom.
Thank you for having me.
Dear listener, I am Nathaniel Nongu, welcoming you this Friday edition of Perspectives. And of course, we shouldn't be mourning because the death and activities leading to the burial of Wantare Paul Ichull Nongu seem to be a celebration of life. So if you see our tone is lively, don't think that it's something sorrowful and we're lively here in the studio. Later at 10 o'clock, you can participate on the program by calling in on the number 0814-335-9292, 0814-335-9292. In the meantime, the line which is available through which you can contribute via SMS or WhatsApp is 0912-699-9404. Log onto our website on www.igethradiotv.com to listen to us and access other content of Ihagh Radio as well. We are available on Radio Garden and on social media platforms where the program is streaming. Join us there. You can also download the Ihagh Radio and TV app from Google Play Store to listen to us. You access the radio, television, online, as well as the newspaper. We'll take a short break, and once we are back, the discussion starts. Kindly stay with us, dear listener. Welcome back from that short break. Thank you for staying with us. Let me begin with you, Reverend Ichull. What is your perception of the late elder statesman, Wantare Paul Ichull Nongu?
I can describe him as an evergreen enigma. The man who came to Nigeria, to Tiv Nation, and offered his best. Discussion, I will be able to unbundle the man Nongu in greater detail.
Okay, Mr. Adom, let me have your thoughts of what you make of the personality who Nongu was in succinct terms.
Well, to me, the late Wantare Paul Ichull Nongu was first and foremost a thievishly thief man. I remember that he also once described himself that he's thievishly thief. And then I can also describe him as someone who passionately loved Benue and Nigeria, his country, and worked assiduously to make a mark and has left his legacies on the sand of time. In brief, that's my perspectives about him.
Okay, Reverend Ichull.
Yes.
Let's dive deeper into you described him as an enigma. The term enigma that he was it just in Benue or across Nigeria?
Yes, from one terrorist exposure internationally and locally, his experience, beginning with Nigerian politics, before he did human psychopathology, he had a stint with J. Stacker. And before that time, he was the president of the community of TIF students. These exposures gave him the context of what Nigeria was looking forward to. And then his exposure in Canada between 1960 to 1969 or 70 thereabout, there were crosswinds, political crosswinds in Canada, America, and Western Europe generally. And the thematic issues that were playing then was the Vietnam War. And Paul Nongu, as the student union leader in Canada, was one of those who led the protest against the Vietnam War to the extent that the presidential candidate at that time, Pierre Trudeau, recognized him and conscripted him into his campaign for presidency of Canada in 1968. With this exposure, the crosswinds had already infected him with the spirit of justice, fair play, and civil liberties. You also recall that this was the time that the civil rights activist Reverend of John F. Kennedy. Now, these were the people that Paul Nongu admired and his thinking. These were the people who changed his perception of politics. When Nongu went to Canada, his intention was to study medicine. In fact, he was a core medical student before he switched to experimental human psychopathology, because it had more to do with the study of human beings and how to improve human beings and how to improve nations. And so these were his experiences. These were the things, the building blocks that made Unongo who he finally became, who he finally unveiled to Nigeria.
Okay, and I think until his passing, one of the prominent legacies about him was his white regalia. And I must commend you panelists on the program for sustaining his legacy, because both of you have decided to adorn in white this morning. I should have acknowledged that earlier. Yeah. But Mr. Adom, listening to your co-panelists, he pointed out how Unongo funded the Community of Chief Students, CTS. You've been a unionist at that level. Just speak to us about his legacy of bequeathing to the community, the TIF people, the establishment of the Community of TIF Students.
Yes. Unongo actually studied the French Renaissance. And then it was based on the ideas of Charles de Gaulle on French Renaissance that he founded the Community of TIF Students. That was around 1956/1957. At that point, He was still a student of Government College, Kefi. And as a young schoolboy, as he has described in one of his books, he founded a community of TIFF students. But interestingly, he was not the first president of CTS in as much as he was the founder of this pan-TIFF student organization. And this community of TIFF students, right from its formation, has remained the bedrock, has remained the melting point, has remained the rallying point of all TIFF students studying in various institutions across the world. And that platform of the community of TIFF students, it has been the vanguard of fighting against oppression, suppression, and marginalization of not just TIFF students, but of course, the entirety of the TIFF nation. And I would like to also add that the community of TIFF students has been the springboard for leadership in TIFF nation, because a lot of contemporary leaders and a lot of past leaders of this TIFF nation, Benue and Nigeria at large, were at various points leaders of this organization. And I would like to speak from where I also became an active participant of the community of TIFF students. In 2002, when President Olusegun Obasanjo wanted to flag off his campaign for re-election as president of Nigeria, Benue was the point of taking off the campaign. And then the community of TIFF students at that time, led by Michael Koko, decided that it was not proper that after the killings in Zakibiam, Beji and Vasi, that the president has not apologized to TIFF people and Benue. Therefore, the campaign should not be flagged off here in Benue. And there were spontaneous protests in Makudi and Boko, and the student leaders were arrested and manhandled. So what the TIFF students did at that point in time was to call for compensation of the TIFF people. They called that the TIFF people ought to be apologized to before the president will come for the purpose of campaign. Then we also have Tekra Asasigo. At the point, he was a student of University of Maiduguri, he was a president. And during that invasion by the Nigerian army, he mobilized the TIFF students and went out to distribute relief materials to the affected TIFF people. I can go on and on and on, but the point I'm trying to highlight is that the CTS has been the springboard of leadership. And around 2006, the current Speaker of the Benue State House of Assembly, Hysen Onunadajo, was also the president. And Iowasi Hembe, who later became House of Rest member for Vanika Konshisha, was also an active member of the community of TIFF students, and several other young people. And I also had the privilege of serving the CTS as the Director of Media and Publicity around 2008, 2009. So I can boldly say, without any form of contradiction, that the community of TIFF students has remained one of the greatest legacies of the late Wantare Poyo Nongu as far as leadership training, as far as fighting for the rights of the Tea people is concerned. Thank you.
Okay. Reverend Ichull,
Yes.
are members of the community of these students contemporarily, from your observation, sustaining the legacies, the ideas that the founding father Wantare Poyopo Nongu stood for, in your opinion?
In my opinion, we have not done much to sustain the tempo that Wantare Nongu, the fire that he put into CTS has not been burning with the kind of zest that he would have loved to. You see, leadership is about access to followership. If you don't carry people along, it will be difficult for them to understudy into his life, to study what made him to be who he was. And given the same opportunity, how I should also transfer that chain of trust among the people. And so what I'm trying to say is that some of the people you have mentioned have done a lot to better the posterity of these people and even Nigeria. But we could have done more given the kind of a mission that he had, hold a political office. He has continued to be impactful. The simple reason was that he was not weighed down by his political advantages to rest on his oars. He continued to visit institutions within the state and outside the state to speak to students. I recall when he visited College of Education Kasnala in 1981, and I was there to listen to his speech. I was so touched by the speech that the speech went into my memory bank. And many years after, at least I could recall the preamble of that speech. And I recast it to him. And I was trying to say it in his own words. I was very impressed that young people are learning from him. And if you give me 1 minute, I'll say it.
Yes.
As a part of it.
Well, it will be fine.
Yes.
It will be fine. If we can hear the voice of Unongo in you again.
Yes. He started by saying, Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I rise here, firstly, to salute academic freedom and to give honor to the avowed detached inclination of the academia. It is one of the sacrifices of old by our predecessors who fought and even died for academic freedom and the sanctity of this freedom within the walls of our institutions of higher learning. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we've been invited here to come and contribute freely our views on a relevant topic, which is of national, regional, and international consequences, without the reference to a partisan political posture. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the topic you have chosen, the place of Nigeria in international affairs, left on its own, it is a runaway topic. It is far too diffused, too wide, and too all-embracing to constitute a single lecture, if this lecture will be of quality to our future leaders. I will therefore limit this lecture to an exposé exposing here and there the place of Nigeria in international affairs. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, after this lecturer hopes to give his listeners sufficient burdensome raw material for chewing and churning and innovative thinking, which inevitably will permit his listeners to locate the place of Nigeria in international affairs by themselves. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria, the most populous country in Black Africa, has contributed significantly to international affairs since its independence in 1960. Mr. Chairman, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it was the first Prime Minister of Nigeria, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, while enunciating Nigeria's foreign policy, emphasized that Africa shall be the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. This focus derived from the country's non-aligned stance during the Cold War. And he went on and on. I can go on.
Oh, wow.
I suspect that he wrote the speech for
my thinking through. Yeah. So because if several years you are able to give a recount of word for word up to this extent.
Yes, after that...
That is 43 years ago.
After that, he made me his speechwriter.
Now we can understand. Yeah. But in any case, this is part of the issues with a proper documentation in Nigeria that we should talk about.
Yes.
Perhaps
one second. There was one fascinating thing about Unongo.
Yes.
He had a school that had no walls, and the school was Africa Vision Academy.
Okay.
Africa Vision Academy.
Yes.
So the intention was to indoctrinate as many people as possible. That's part of experimental human psychopathology.
Yes.
To be able to to indoctrinate people and to give them revolutionary thinking. Now, the reason why the West was deliberately raising activists to promote Western values and democracy. So people like Unongo were deliberately selected for training so they could train other Africans to appreciate the values of democracy, free speech, and civil rights.
Now, when I mentioned the issue of documentation, for instance, now that this great man is no more, one would have expected like this speech you just read, beautiful one, or lecture, maybe it would have been compiled into a pamphlet, been hawked around the streets of Makurdi or Nigeria, as the case may be. To what extent is his life properly documented? Now that you have exposed yourself as his speech writer, let me take you on that briefly.
Yes, I have. He was deliberate about me, especially when I indicated that interest in him. He would call me by 5 a.m. in the morning. I would ask him to bring a piece of paper. And he would talk endlessly for 3 hours where I took notes. By 8 o'clock, he would ask his cook, Ernst, he was a cook from Cotonou, a French cook, call him to serve us breakfast. He did this for many, many years, and he was deliberate about Unongo. There were also some private discussions that we had, his dreams about Nigeria and about Benue State, that I have documented, and I am preparing them for publication in the nearest future. Where he's well documented, his life is well documented. I can assure you that.
Okay, beautiful. Now, Mr. Adom, of course, we shouldn't gloss over the fact that he was a lecturer at the University of the Department of Psychology degree program in that university. As an academic, to what extent do you believe that he's properly documented? And did he actually open the window for the thief intelligentsia?
Yes, I think Wantare Paul Nongu is properly documented, because I once read his biographical analysis that was written by the late Professor Armstrong Adejo, Paul Nongu, the man, the myth. And not so long ago, there was a symposium at the Benue State University, Makurdi, where the book or the open letter he wrote to the people of Thief Nation, where do we go from here, 40 years after. And all the discussion about centered around Paul Nongu were properly documented in a volume. So his many things that he did, all that I'm saying here about Nongu, I didn't have the kind of privilege that my co-panelists had of closely interacting with him. All that I know about him, I read on the pages of books, newspapers, and all of that. So I think he is properly documented to the extent to which Africans document things. I know that if he were to be a white man, there would have been volumes upon volumes of books about him. But
from different angles.
From different angles.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think he's documented.
I think it's part of the reason why we should go into the archives. I don't know, I may not have the opportunity of being in Jatoaka, in his home country tomorrow, but around Nakudi, we should see resurfacing of some of these published works that are documented about him so that people can have access to it. What do you think, Reverend Ichull?
Yeah, you see, the problem with our society is that we are not curious, and we're not curious enough to write or even to read. In other climes, we need to sensitize on reading and studying leadership. People should be interested in studying leadership, the core values of leadership and what constitutes leadership. It becomes easier to read, but we are not sensitive to leadership. And that's why I said Paul Nongu understood the dynamics of leadership. So he gave young people access to himself, to his life, so that people could study him and have something to say someday. Because he too also studied people. He studied Pierre Trudeau's campaign. He understudied Martin Luther King. He understudied Jeff Kennedy. He even understudied Mahatma Gandhi. You were talking about our white clothes.
Yes.
Now, Paul Nongu lived in phases. If you look at his life when it first happened on Nigeria or Thief Nation, he was always dressed in English, always in suits or French suits. But as he grew older, he started changing his dresses and took the mold of Mahatma Gandhi and was dressed only in white. So every revolutionary phase of his life was marked even by music. When he came back, his favorite music was Dobby Gray, especially Drift Away. I would play it on...
Maybe you have a word of the Dobby Gray you just want to quote briefly for us to hear?
No, Dobby Gray, in Drift Away, he made a statement that caught Onongu's attention.
Okay.
He said, in this game, I don't want to lose.
Okay.
So that was Paul Onongu's guiding spirit. I don't want to lose in this game.
Okay.
In this game of life, in this game of politics, in this game of public appearances. So everything Paul Onongu did was deliberate. And his target was younger people and women. You know, in psychology, your peers may compete with you, but younger people are eager to learn from you. That's why people and women with opposite sex. And then he also had beautiful cars. He had about 6 Citroen Palace cars. He had those days
Of Juladako.
Of Juladako, yes. His contemporaries elsewhere, like in among the Yorubas and the Igbos and the Hausas, that's how he lived. So for him to compete nationally, he needed an appearance that would make his contemporaries elsewhere to see that he's also leading in his own corner. That's why he put up that flamboyant appearance with growth and with what the Tiv people were going through. When he saw the suffering of the Tiv people, he mellowed down on his lifestyle because most of his the allegation against him by most of his peers and contemporaries was that he was a form of Mahatma Gandhi. That's when he started wearing his white.
Okay.
Yeah, so he lived his life in phases with his medallion on his neck.
We're going to talk about that medallion because there were mystics around it. Yes. But we'll come to that later, Mr. Adom. Yeah. Let me have your thoughts on his nationalistic disposition as a nationalist in Nigeria. For instance, it is established that during the General Murtala Muhammad's transition from civil rule in 1975, Nongu was amongst the 50 Nigerians that were selected for the drafting of the Constitution of Nigeria. Did it envision a Nigeria where every voice would be heard, including those of the minorities?
Yes. May I start by saying that truly Unongo was nationalistic in his approach. I have learned that it was Yakubu Gowon, as the head of state of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, that invited him over to Nigeria from Canada. And when he came, he was tasked with establishing the Department of Psychology of the University of Lagos. So for him to have left Canada, come to Nigeria, that was barely 6 years or 7 years as a nation, to establish the Department of Psychology in the University of Lagos, shows that truly he is a patriot. And apart from that, during the Civil War that lasted from 1967 to 1970, Unongo was in charge of the psychological warfare. That was what he was doing. And the intention was to keep Nigeria as one nation, because he was doing this on the part of Nigeria and not the other people who were threatening secession. And then with the transition. And for him to have been carefully selected from Benue to, indeed, he loved Nigeria. And several times, because of his passion for Nigeria's growth, he was sent to the walls of the prison several times. Even when the Oka coup of 1993, he was also arrested, and so many other times. So I want to believe that Paul Unongo truly loved Nigeria. And even when he briefly served Nigeria as a federal minister of power still, it was part of his contribution to the growth of Nigeria. So in all that he did, he professed one Nigeria until his last breath. So in all ramifications, I can categorically say that indeed Unongo was a patriot.
Okay. Reverend Ichull, give us insights into the national politics of Unongo, as you recall.
Yes. Paul Unongo's participation in our national politics started with the formation of MPP and MPN. And Awo's party was
UPN.
UPN, and so on. He decided to go with Azikiwe, Nnamdi Azikiwe. Now, the major reason was that Azikiwe also studied in America, and he had imbibed Western values. So he saw him as the most rational, the most elder brother, J.S. Tucker. But he tried to convince J.S. Tucker to come and contest under the NPP since Zik was still old. But J.S. Tucker let him know that Nigerian politics was still based on regional politics and regional icons. That Zik was a regional icon and he would likely contest to represent the Eastern Bloc. And Awo was also going to contest to represent the Western Bloc. And the North had already promised J.S. Tucker the presidency. So they decided to part ways so that while J.S. Tucker was pursuing the presidency at the national level, he was also the Secretary General of the NPP.
NPN.
MPP. Yes. MPP.
Okay, MPP. Yes. He stated that he was a pioneer Secretary General
of the party. And he played a very significant role in the sense that after the election, there would have been a serious ruckus within the polity, especially when Awo was contesting the victory of Shagari. The balance only came during the MPP-MPN accord, where he single-handedly structured for the purpose of peace in the country. And it was on that score that both his party and MPN agreed to make him make him a cabinet minister in charge of the most difficult project. The steel ministry was still at its embryonic level. And within 6 months, he had already demonstrated the capacity to deliver steel to Nigeria. So I can say that he, at the national level, Unongo demonstrated sufficient diplomacy and skill to bring the various factions, and he took advantage of our diversity to bring unity within the polity. And even when there was his office came under attack, he chose to step aside to the government. So he politically and nationally, he demonstrated that he was a team player. He was also a nationalist. He was also patriotic to that extent. And then, during the formation of the SDP and NRC, in fact, I happened to be present when the choice for SDP was taken. After the broadcast.
So you people were the stakeholders then.
Yes.
You started the stakeholders.
We were at his sitting room at Ikorodu.
Okay.
In the night when IBB made the speech, talking about creating two political parties, the NRC and the SDP.
A little to the left.
A little to the left and a little to the right. So he put a call to late Major General Yaradua. And Major General Yaradua said yes. He was in his house at Ikoyi waiting for him with Mrs. Ajanaku. So we drove to Yaradua's house in the night. We got there at about 1 a.m. And they held discussions until early in the morning, and they took a decision to go a little to the left. That's when they chose SDP. So in the morning, after the IBB announcement, Yar'Adua himself and other colleagues, Yemi Odu and other politicians held a press conference to announce their decision to go a little to the left, because he was a progressive. So most progressives went to joined SDP. But if you recall, after some time, IBB banned
the old
brigade.
Brigade of the Second Republic.
So that's when they switched off his political engine. From that moment, he became disgruntled about Nigerian politics. Now, let me tell you, one of Unongo's biggest problems in this country was military interventions. He did not like military intervention in the polity because it made it difficult for Nigeria to develop under a military regime, because military regimes make universal suffrage impossible. But these were the people that were trained by the West to promote democracy as the best choice of administering a people. So after that, that ban, it became disillusioned with Nigeria, with Nigerian politics, because it saw no need of fighting the military continuously when there was no progress politically.
All right, let's move away from the national, come down to local, or the state of Benue, where he belonged to since the days of Benue Plateau, as it were, up to this moment, Mr. Adom. Unongo enjoyed massive popularity among the people. Why did all his attempts to be governor of the state fail? Wow. Since the days of Aperiku to the days of Governor Akume, it's on record that he contested serially.
When Reverend Chu was talking about the musical icon that Unongo so much revered, and that he talked about, I will never lose in this game.
I don't want to lose.
I don't want to lose in this game. I was just laughing with him. This man wanted never to lose in this game, but consistently, serially he lost. Yes. So, what could have been the reason? Yes. Unongo's political life has come a very long way. For those that knows T political history, and even earlier on, Reverend Chu mentioned that he was an ally of J.S. Taka. He served under Taka because Taka was the political leader of the Tiv Nation, and Unongo was somewhere there. And from the books, one of the greatest problems of Unongo and Taka was that Unongo wanted young, educated, Tiv people in politics. And then what the books have is that Taka was not so much disposed to Bafan Tagada.
As they were coining it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Unongo was insisting that politics is for the educated people. So there was that kind of division between him and Taka. So this was in phases until in 1979, when democracy was returning into Nigeria after military interventions, Unongo did not contest for the governorship of Benue. Aperiku contested on the platform of the NPN, and then Paul Belabo contested on the platform of the MPP. and Unongo was supporting Paul Balabo. But somehow the MPN won the election. So in 1983, when Aku was seeking re-election, that was the first time that Unongo came into the game to contest for the governorship election of Benue State. Before then, he had not contested. But Unongo was very popular in Tiv Nation because of the kind of things he was doing. It was him who established one of the most luxurious hotels and hospital that had 1,000 capacity bed space in Kasnala with the name Joladako Hospital, Joladako Hotel in Kasnala. Then there was also Joladako Hotel in Jatoka. And then there was what was called the Unongo village in Adeka, Boko. So in all these things that Unongo had, Joladako Transport Company, the companies were not able to flourish because he couldn't differentiate between philanthropy and business, maximizing profit. So he was very, very popular. But when he contested for governorship in 1983, he lost. But like Jibo mentioned in his book, Tea Politics since 1959, he said that we cannot actually conclude who won the 1983 election because Unongo went to court to challenge the 1983 election. And then the High Court in Benue here refused to hear it. But Unongo appealed and went up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court gave a judgment that Unongo's case should be heard. And then it came back to the first court of instance so that his case would be heard. And then it was while he was still in court challenging Aku's election that on December 31st, 1983, General Buhari and his gang took over Nigeria again. So it is possible to say that one of the reasons he lost that election was because of the incumbency factor that we have in Nigerian politics. It is not basically because he was not popular. He was popular. He was loved. But it is always very difficult to unseat a sitting governor. And of course, from in Benue State since 1979 to now, we have not had any issue of sitting an incumbent governor, whether popular or not popular. None has been unseated. Then that democracy was truncated. In 1999, already the Babangida transition, the old brigade were asked not to participate, and Unongo belongs to that category. So he wouldn't have contested for the governor. In 1999, he was not there to contest. He was busy with his other political activities. Then in 2003, he came that he will seat another governor. So I think that
so he had a penchant of aspiring to
sit there because he was a progressive.
Okay.
So at any given time, he will just take a vantage position to watch as things are unfolding, and then he will discover that this governor has not done so well. So let me remove him and put myself so that I will bring those progressive ideas to move Benue State forward. But in 2003 again, he wanted to unseat Akume, who was in PDP, and then he came on the platform of the defunct APP.
As it were.
So Nongu has always been popular, but then, can I say his timing, based on the Nigerian factor, based on the Nigerian factor, he's always coming to unseat a sitting governor. And then it's unfortunate that in Benue State, where only the Tiv people are enjoying the seat of the governor, whether a governor is good or bad, the other people who are waiting, they will say that let that man complete his 8 years and go so that it will come to the next turn. So it is always difficult to truncate it and bring another person in between. So I can say that he has always been unfortunate coming to contest to unseat a sitting governor in spite of his popularity. So I can say that in spite of his popularity, in spite of his progressive dialogue to political lining, he has been very unfortunate to come at a time that I can say it's unfortunate for him to win such election based on the Nigerian factor.
So we can say he's a governor we never had.
Yes, certainly.
Reverend Chu,
Yes.
give us your own thoughts, what you make of, despite his massive popularity, why he never succeeded becoming governor of Benue State.
Yes, I will locate it from the point of lack of finance. Because if Unongo had properly managed his business from the beginning, he would have built enough war chest for his political activities.
Okay, so
But-
this financial war chest
Yes,
we
yes.
talk about.
Yes.
All right.
So, but his kind of business was what is called social business. In a social business, the dividend of the owner is satisfaction. It's not profit. His profit is to be satisfied that he's meeting the needs of the poor and the vulnerable. So that kind of social business does not bring money. But he was a man of faith. He thought that by so doing, things will work out. So he believed in models. For example, he believed that his health care will let people see how he can manage healthcare. His transport system even had a security outfit. He had schools which showed that he was interested in education. So he had these models, but they could not translate into money. And he failed also to realize that money had already taken a center stage in Nigerian politics at that time. You needed money to succeed. His colleagues elsewhere, were well funded.
But I used to hear that Unongo would attend campaign rallies. Instead of giving money to the people would contribute money and give him.
But
So
you see,
was he actually lacking money?
No. You see, money in politics goes beyond exchanging hands with the candidate and the voters.
Okay.
How do you take care of those who protect your votes? How do you take care of security? How do you take care of even the people who conduct elections? This is how money is spent. You see, one woman in Boko said, "Ufataga utsafa duniaga." It means the word has two sides. If you don't know the deeper part of the world, you will not even know the upper part of the world. You need to know
The two.
Politics has two sides: what you see and what you don't see. So political expenditure also has two sides: what you see people spending on and what you can never see. You can never see how money exchanges hands to the extent of determining election outcomes. So that's about money. You need to have the kind of money that can actually determine election outcomes. So that's what he didn't have. That's the advantage he suffered. So I will say that when it was time for him to come, for instance, if he had come to contest at the time Paul Bellabo was contesting,
That is 1979.
1979, he would have made it, but he came after Paul Bellabo lost. Now, in 1983, what actually happened? It was the disagreements and the forces within NPN that pushed Paul Nongu into the race against Aku. Because by that time, if you recall, people like Jibo had moved to join Unongo. Most people from MPN were the ones who came to convince him that their party had fallen, that he should come and contest. And so he came too late. Now, let me tell you one secret about Paul Nongu that nobody knew.
Briefly.
I'm disclosing this for the purpose of this discussion.
We love secrets. The media love to get that. And that should be exclusive to Ihagh Radio to get that secret.
And for the fact that he taught us so that we'll also teach others to learn from his mistakes. In fact, there was a time he told us that if a revolution starts, we should first come and kill people like him who have failed us. He told us that he has failed us. So the secret is that Paul Nongu nursed a secret ambition of becoming Nigeria's president. But he wanted to use Benue as a model.
Okay.
So anytime he saw his time passing, he'll go into the ring. The intention was not Benue. Benue was the ostensible aim, but the actual aim was to launch himself into the national limelight and contest for the presidency. That was actually what brought Unongo into politics. It was not to become the governor of the state. It was to become the president of Nigeria. His vision was far beyond the state.
That's interesting to know.
Yes.
Anyway, we are going to talk more. He never succeeded to become governor, never became president. But later on, we'll discuss more into what the crop of leaders we have can take as legacies from the vision that he espoused. Yes, listener, if you are just tuned, Makudi, we are discussing the life and times of the late elder statesman, Wantari Paul Yopu Unongu, the late elder statesman, Reverend Peter Ichull, and a historical commentator and author, Terver Adom, is also with us on the panel. You can call in on 0814-335-9292, 0814-335-9292. That's the line to participate on the program. In the meantime, the SMS line is also available, and that line is 0912-699-9404, 0912-699-9404. After this short timeout, which will give us a breather, we'll be back to start taking your calls. Kindly stay with us. Welcome back from that short break, and thank you for staying with us on Perspectives. Good morning and welcome to Perspectives.
Good morning, Mr. Nathaniel.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning to the great people in the studio.
Good morning to you too.
Good morning, thank you.
My name is Fiasi Motun.
Okay, good to have you join us, Fiasi Motun. Where are you reaching us from?
I'm reaching you from Benue State University, Department of Biological Sciences.
Okay.
I got to know about Paul Nongu when my uncle was a member of his party. You know, we could search for our uncle for like 3 weeks without seeing him, only to understand that he has been on the campaign rally with late Paul Nongu. You know, he would just pick up his bag the village and then put his hand at the back, and that is the end. And on coming back...
Oh, really? So you mean he would just put his hand at the back and that would be it? So he had the capacity to disappear, maybe?
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying that. But I got to understand that. You know, he worked with Paul Nongu. And so unfortunate that he got nothing from him. I was wondering, you know, there was nothing you could tell him about Paul that he would leave him. You know, even his wife, at the point he asked him, can you Paul, I know where you be? Who talked to her kitchen? We do it here. Who he the Gazanza lad, you come on. Then he said he had nothing to say. So with me, he used to confide in me.
Yes.
He told me, well, anytime after they are done with the campaign, they are back home, no demobilization and all sorts of.
Very well. So away from your uncle, let's also have your thoughts of, what you made of him briefly, so that we can also
Yes,
allow others the opportunity
I
to
made of
participate.
Paul as a very intelligent person. I love to listen to him, just like Paul, Reverend. Reverend is just speaking the way Paul, the late one Tari, used to speak. I will quote him in one. He said, I shall consult the oracle known as PDP. That was when he lost election. And Paul had a way of doing things. His own ways of doing things were quite unique. That nobody, like when they were saying of Mahatma Gandhi, I said, yes, he must have believed in somebody to be a unique person in his own generation. And he has done that. For one thing, Paul was not the type that could attend burial of his followers. So what was the reason? I would throw that to you because he was always with him in the manner of doing things. He
All right.
never.
Yes.
When my uncle died and he was in Buruku, he said, he's not the one, he's not an undertaker, so to say. So I want to ask you, what was...
Thank you for calling in. There's so many things we are going to answer here today, too.
Yeah.
But those will be the ones that you can and or you have insights about. Good morning.
Good morning, Nat.
Thank you.
How are you?
I am fine, thank you. Welcome to Perspectives.
My name is Dr. Joe Assam.
Good to have you join us, Joasan. Where are you reaching us from?
I'm reaching from Makadi. I was driving to Boko when I heard that Peter Chichu was going to be on your program, so I had to park by the Air Force Base to contribute before proceeding.
Oh, that's
In
interesting.
fact,
That's
in
interesting.
fact, I'm on my way to Boko. From Boko, I will be leaving for Unongo village for the burial
Okay,
of our mentor.
good.
First of all, I'd like to commend Peter Chu, who happens to be my contemporary, and Adom, my kid brother, for a job well done.
Thank you very much.
That I've done. When Paul Unongo was Minister of Steel and Industries, I remember vividly the appointments that Paul influenced. Paul happens to come from Kwande. He influenced the appointment of a Kunav man as the managing director of Delta Steel. Influenced the appointment of another Kunav man as Mr. Mede. Tacha Joji was the MD. Mede was the financial guru. Tony Gay from Ushongo was a legal advisor, and others from Zone C.
Januse.
Yeah, and others from Zone C. I think one or two. That clearly portrayed him as somebody that was completely detribalized in court, both at the national level and at the state level. And I would like to advise our present leaders try and copy in quote that strategy of spreading out critical appointments in the interest of political and national cohesion. The fact that you are from one part of Benue or Nigeria does not give you the political audacity or negative propensity of accumulating appointments in your region.
Okay.
Let them copy that. There's no time. I would have liked to trace back my encounter with my mentor in the days of my medical school days as the president of University of Jos Medical Association. When Professor Tseyo, his in-law, was the dean of social sciences. I would just highlight that the day that Professor Tseyo was appointed Minister of Power, in fact, he was a chairman of a symposium that we organized, University of Jos Medical students organized. And from that symposium, we drove straight to Paul's house with some other TIF students to go and break the good news. And there was only one advisor he gave him. He said, just act according to the statute and do not allow people to mess you up. Our politicians should learn to act by the statute.
All right.
And allow the system to mess them up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Joasan, for your contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
And we wish you a safe journey, by the way. Thank you. You had to stop just for this program. Of course, that shows how much you value your late mentor, the elder statesman, and you advised politicians, leaders to be detribalized the way he was. 0814-335-9292. That's the line to participate on the program as we discuss the life and times of Paul Unongo. Who was he to you? What did you hear about him? What can we learn from the life he lived? This will be our focus. Good morning and welcome to Perspectives. Hello. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Ihagh from Ichull, Gumaloku Governor of Benue State.
Good to have you join us, Hyacinth Ihagh.
Somehow you want to review it.
Oh, quite unfortunate we lost connection with Hyacinth Ihagh, but the line is...
Very good morning to you, the presenter of this program.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for guest in the house.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. When I was
the network, hello,
yes.
the network is the network is breaking at your end, and we can barely hear you well. And also, try to introduce yourself and where you're calling from. Hello. Oh, quite unfortunate that caller is lost. The call is lost too, but we're still on. I'm sorry, once you connect with us, kindly turn down the volume of your radio set or move away from it. Good morning. Okay, the ground norm is that once you connect with the studio, please move away from your radio set or turn down its volume so we can engage better. Good morning. Welcome to Perspectives.
Yes, this is Alfred Udo. You know, I earlier called, but the line you say it was breaking. So how is it now?
Okay, Alfred Udo, where are you reaching us from?
Yeah, I'm calling from high level here in Makodi.
Okay.
Yes, you can hear me now.
Speak on, Alfred.
Okay. Yes, if I personally cannot, bring out the legacies as much as my guests in the house, they are giving the opportunity to know so many other things. But I just want to say one or two things briefly. The other guest made mention of when Unongo, one Tarepo, Unongo, was with latest Wantaka.
Hello, Alfred. Alfred, you are on, but your voice is not coming through anymore. Hello. Okay, Alfred, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Anyway, the line is
maybe he's in high level. Maybe he should go to low level. Maybe the line is too high for him for us to properly hear him.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Welcome to Perspective. This sounds like the Hyacinth Ihagh back on the line.
I am the one. I was asked to the network gave shared me properly.
Okay.
So I am the one.
All right. Good to have you back on the line.
As I was saying, the review was about Paul Nongu. Once someone who want to review it, we shed tears. However, we shall say it's a gift from God. The man is one of the greatest Nigerians. However, in Cleveland, he was actually taking upper hand. But in terms of politics, he wasn't lacking in politics. Somehow, by nature of creation, people, God created us in most of the gifted. So when you are gifted, you are not gifted in a particular field, any effort you make will always be a failure. However, the other aspect of the man has done it well. I think that keeps a legacy for himself.
Okay.
So we are not disappointed on that note.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hyacinth. We appreciate you. Now was born a great Nigerian, although he was not lucky in politics. That's the Hyacinth Ihagh's opinion about him, and we welcome it. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, you are on, but your voice is not coming through, and we can only disconnect with you if you are able to call back. That will be fine. The line to participate on the program once again is 0814-335-9292. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. I hope I'm right on Ihagh Radio.
Very well. You're on to Perspectives on Ihagh Radio.
Thank you. That's a good one. I want to first of all give kudos to the guests in the studio.
Yes. May we know your name?
Almost giving them. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I am Comrade Jacob Tezungu Ashika, calling from high level Makodi.
Okay. Go ahead now, Jacob.
I want to appreciate and then give kudos to the guests you have in the house. In fact, how we it were a school so that I can have a study, I can have a knowledge from them. But all the same, we've gotten it the way we ought to have gotten it. I want to ask, one time, Paul Nongu, having done this all good that you're talking about, the plans are beautiful. His plans with beautiful plans, and then unity, and then patriotic. But what stops him from being a leader in Nigeria and at most here in Benue State? That is, maybe after my conversation, the answer will be given to me.
Okay, conclude your thoughts.
Yeah. And then another one is because personally, as I'm talking, I was in secondary school at Katsina Ala. Juradako Hotel was given to, in fact, people that were sleeping there, we did not even know them. Some were not even cheap people. And no rent was collected. He don't dash people to be using, and some other properties that he has. So I want to believe that Pono was a good person.
Okay.
Or maybe God has not given him the leadership or what.
Jacob,
so this is my question, please.
Jacob, thank you. Thank you very much for calling in. Anyway, it appears you're just tuning in. Otherwise, that was just what we discussed before we went into taking the course. But that's okay. Maybe a refresher will come. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Welcome to Perspectives.
Thank you. I want to...
Could you speak up? You sound inaudible.
My name is Abu Wandove from Logo 2.
Okay, Abu Wandove, good to have you join us.
Yes, I want to very appreciate you, especially the management of Iorbee Radio, for bringing this wonderful program. For me, I am calling for our leaders, all our leaders, especially our team leader, to emulate late for Nongu. You know, for Nongu did what many of us forget. For Nongu was a leader of, I think, Northern Elders Forum. He was a leader of Northern Elders Forum. And for Nongu resigned that position because, the previous government, particularly, thieves, they were killing thieves here in Benue State. And the previous government was silent about it. Therefore, Nongu resigned that position because they are killing these people. I want our leaders should emulate.
For calling in, our leaders should emulate the late elder statesman who, according to Onve, did resign his position as a member or chairman of the Northern Elders Forum for injustice meted on his people. The line to participate on the program once again is 0814-335-9292. The SMS line is 0912-699-9404.
I wonder why you are cutting me off this day. This day is a very special day.
Good.
One time before you
Hello. Good.
Eldenburg can call him. One time before you can give a better. I remember very well that in those days when I was a very young boy, in groups of people like there was Ogunde, Okakabe, who is now traditional ruler somewhere in Ogunde. We used to be boys following Paul very hard. In fact, on the night where I almost lost my life in Jatoaka, the next day John died because we had solidly the grammar, the sweetness of the grammar was one of the specialties. I remember one grammar he taught us. I used to say very naive, very naive. And you see that word naive is coming along Cleveland today up to this moment because the Steve nation is living in naivety.
Hello. Okay.
We grant the Steve nation to come out of naivety so that we will know where we are headed, our position in the Nigerian society. One of the things I know about Paul Unongo was that he was very generous. Generosity was it. He refused to be a rock, practically.
We sit down and study how to collect.
Okay, I'm sorry, we may have to disconnect because your network is getting unfriendly.
Okay,
But
so all things are government.
amen. Thank you very much. And please, we should establish clearly that we don't cut anybody off on this program. If we pick your call and the network is unfriendly where you are not coming through, the only thing we can do is to disconnect with you, and maybe if you try to connect, so don't accuse us falsely of disconnecting you. This is not just for the last caller, but any other person. Good morning.
Nongu,
Good morning. Welcome to Perspectives.
my brother. This is Solomon Peke, calling from Ude in Guma local government.
Good to have you join us, Solomon.
Thank you very much. My regards to the discussants in the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please, when I heard of the demise of Unongo, in fact, I was shocked. About 2 years back, I shed tears. Not that I dispute her, I disagree, or I debunk the doctrinal teaching of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. But the pain of his departure was unbearable, unacceptable, and unbelievable. But one thing again, I said to my heart, I am saying it today, self. I say, goodbye, Dad. Yes, today is your turn. Tomorrow will be mine. We meet to depart no more. What I want to say about Unongo's life is when a sitting governor was already in office, so he may find it difficult. Not that we were not giving him, let me say, no chance to rule or anything. We wanted Unongo to rule. But my brother discussed in the studio, he said financially and power in politics. In fact, you cannot remove somebody in office as a governor in Benue State. That is the result, and that is the history so far.
Okay, Solomon, but you were of voting age at the time he was contesting, and you voted and you believed he wanted him to rule, right?
Yes, but the powers supersede. They say one with God is majority, but today one with government house is majority.
Anyway, that's okay, Solomon. We thank you for calling.
Thank you very much, Nathaniel.
All right.
One in government house is majority. No one with God again.
Quite a definition. That's okay. Good morning. Welcome to Perspectives.
Yes, good morning. Alf from High Level. I called back again.
Okay, good to have you, Alfred.
Oh, yes. So, I was trying to make a point. You know, the discussions in the studio, they have dwelled exhaustively on the life of our dear father. Then you will see the man was a leader. He was a facilitator, an effective communicator. All these things that he was loaded with.
Yes.
Well, I want to make one point.
Yes, go
He
ahead.
tried in his life to create 2 additional states in this state, but it fails. Just like they were discussing so many things that he wanted them to be, but he couldn't. Maybe God did not allow it to come. But as somebody, he was a visionary leader. And the one person said that he understands the dynamics of leadership, which is true. I totally agree with him. Now, my advice is this. With all these beautiful things that he has done for us, not here just in a Benue State or a team nation, but the entire Nigeria. He wrote a book in 1969. I read it. I didn't read the book, but I read this story. You know, when he was at 32 years, he wrote a book, Where Do We Go From Here? And I urge all of us to answer this question now that he is no more.
All right.
Where
Do we go
from here?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Alfred, thank you for calling in. Where do we go from here? Of course, we are going to reflect on that again and again. Alfred, thank you for drawing our attention to that. I can hear Unongo in your voice, asking Benue and Nigeria which way. Where do we go from here? That's okay. Good morning. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, hello.
Welcome to Perspectives.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, this is I'm chairman from I-Level.
Ame Oche?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Ame.
Yes. Though this program is actually interesting because we, the younger generation, we really didn't experience when he was alive. So only a few things we've heard of him. So I want to thank Gate Radio for this opportunity. And then, unfortunately, I feel as a younger generation, hearing this from a legend and a heroic person like this when he's dead, and knowing all these good things he has done, and yet he don't have the opportunity to lead us. I think Ihagh Radio should find an avenue, or all media should find an avenue to bring some of these people to life, like when they are alive. So we will know them, and possibly there could be a means of us to want them in power, rather than talking about them, their greatness, when they are already dead and can't just enjoy those dividends. So thank you very much.
All right. Ame, thank you for your contribution. At least we're glad that we have provided a platform for you to learn a thing or two about the late elder statesman. And of course, we are not taking your advice for granted, and we'll work on that. Good morning.
Hello, Nat. I forgot an important point. This is Dr. Hassan again.
Okay.
I forgot an important point. And I think,
are you still staying put to listen to us before you proceed?
yes, and I'm discussing. I'm with some friends too.
Okay.
You see, let us just concentrate briefly on Paul Unongo's political recruitment process. His political the nucleus of his political recruitment process was hinged on excellence and intellect. I am aware of the fact that the political system has subsystems, but the core system in any political system is the intellectual capability of that system. That was why he identified people like Peter. Though Peter was in Kasinala, he discovered that he had the intellectual capability of crafting strategies that would fit into his vision. So my advice to our present leaders is to discard this impoverished political system recruitment process that we have in Benue State. Go back to what the present president has done, Tinubu. The nucleus of his team at the federal level are members of his recruitment process that superintended over Lagos on other states. So let us just have this scenario. If one of us is made the president of this country today, any of our leaders is made the president of this country today, what recruitment structure are we going to inject recruitment process in Benue State and in Tivlet in particular, so that we can move forward?
Okay. Thank you very much, Joasa. Political recruitment should be based on intellectual competence. Anyway, Adom said one person was averse to Mbafan Tagada in politics. We wonder if that we still the same experience today. Good morning. Hello. Good morning. Okay, you are on, but your voice is not coming through, so we may disconnect with you. You can also send us an SMS to 0912-699-9404. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Thank you for joining us on Perspectives.
Thank you. I'm Nyajo Gode from Majimba Guma local government.
Okay, good to have you, Nyajo.
Thank you. In fact, I want to sympathize with the family of Unongo condition and the Benue State entirely. Unongo was a leader that we never forgotten, despite he lived on earth. First and foremost, he was the person who believed with the rule of law. Anything that he wants to do, he wants to do it in such a way that it will not affect the people. I wish our people did not want to stand by the truth by anybody in whatever situation they are in. That is why his followers, or who he groomed, they were
always stand by the truth. Such like people like Hondo, Charles Bunde, Iorbee, and the rest of them. Secondly, his position of maintaining the minority group in this country, he always stand by it. So I want to advise majority of our leaders today, and even we youth, we need to emulate the Unongo policies and life so that we can grow this country. And lastly, I want to appeal for Team Nation and Nigeria at large to mortalize the Unongo for us. Thank you and God bless.
Godwin Yajo, thank you very much for calling in. Thank you. Unongo should be immortalized. That will be a point where we will stay temporarily for the course now, and we'll come back to our discussants in the studio. I'd like to begin with you now, Reverend Ichull. Yeah. This may just be a question for us to answer passively or gloss over. Yeah. Fiase Mutun was wondering that someone who was very close to Nongu died, and he said he doesn't attend funerals of his undertaker. He's not an undertaker, to use his words. Is it true, or what? Is there anything that was spectacular about that? Was he into the practice, and why was it so?
No, I think that must be a very special exception, because I don't know the circumstances, but Unongo had a policy of burying his supporters who died, and the public can testify to that. This must be a special situation that I cannot delve into easily, because I don't know the circumstances. But that's so much unlike Unongo. Nobody will agree that that happened, but I don't know the circumstances under which it happened. He was not a vindictive person. Even if the person offended him, he was not the sort of vindictive person that would shown or scorn the death of even an enemy. So I don't believe that he would ignore the suffering of his supporters, because that's all he lived for. Apart from politics, he lived for people.
Okay, yeah. But there's also this story where maybe even the circumstance of his burial itself are playing out, that he used to keep people who die of his followers for a prolonged period of time. He died in 2022, 2 years down the line. We're talking about his funeral. Why?
Yes,
why?
Incidentally, Shakespeare said, I think in, is it the Merchant of Venice, that as in life, so in death, certain things happen around people, so that even when they die, those things still happen. Time, and for a long time, the father did not. The father was not buried. The kind of sepulcher he designed in this village, it was supposed to be a tomb that would either be powered by gas or electricity. And he kept his father in. After the mother's death, the burial of the mother delayed. My interpretation, now I'm only left to interpret. I cannot emphatically say why he did that, because no matter how close you are with someone, there are some of their motivations that you can only conjecture. You cannot clearly state why such things happen.
Yes.
I think he was, the sepulcher could not be maintained the way he wanted. And he did not want to bury his father or mother outside what he had planned. And so he kept waiting for the right circumstances to power that sepulcher to the level that would be able to accommodate those bodies. So it kept being delayed. The same thing is playing out during his burial, because the children are trying to raise the sepulcher to the standard that he wanted before the burial could take place. And that is what they have finally achieved before before his burial. So
so he's a great man, even in death.
yes. So even in death, his wishes are being kept.
Anyway, that's okay. Let's move away from that a bit. Adom,
yes.
let me have your thoughts briefly. Joe has mentioned something about leadership recruitment process. To what extent are people, are current crop of leaders, keen in the tradition of leadership recruitment process that aligns with Unongo's vision of what he would want for Nigeria and Benue State?
The truth is that I don't know the leadership recruitment process of Paul Nongu.
Okay.
But what I know about the general recruitment process of leadership in Benue is that it's very, very poor. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote about leadership recruitment process in Benue, particularly the chief axis. Most of our leaders, just like Erufai say, accidental public servant, see a space and then just jump into it. And I think, like I pointed out earlier, that was one of the problems of Joseph Taka, J.S. Taka, and Paul Nongu. J.S. Taka was a conservative. He wanted leaders, people should be properly Facebook at high level. That young people should not wait for invitation into politics. It is not a party. They should just take off like jet and land.
Crash land.
And crash land in the midst of
you are quoting affidavit in
yes, from to our Facebook that was actually for me. What we have here is many young people just taking off, or maybe our leaders will just sit and look around and say that this man will be loyal to me if I make him this, and they will just bring the person without any form of recruitment, and the person is what they want. That is what has been happening here. So you don't have a leader who is very conscious, who is very deliberate of recruiting people, that after me, this man should come, that this man is fit for this man is fit for that. There may be some exceptional cases, but on a general note, that is my personal observation about the political leadership recruitment process we have around here.
Yes, I will differ a bit from his perspective.
Yes.
I think, and these circumstances agree with me that Unongo was deliberate about leadership recruitment. As Dr. Joe Hassan mentioned in his telephone call, when he became Minister of Steel, he deliberately selected Engineer Tacha Joji and Mede and John Uze from the Kunab axis. He also selected other people across the Tivland, including Idoma. In fact, his leadership recruitment started from sponsorship of students abroad and even within. There was some, I know about 1 or 2 Idoma doctors that Paul Nongu produced from, I think, Ohio State University. And so he...
But can we have a difference between sponsorship,
sponsorship
of education and then you are recruiting somebody for leadership position?
Yes,
education,
and basically,
education starts from
Reverend Chu, maybe we should clarify that we are really not burdening ourselves with his own leadership recruitment in particular, but what our leaders can take maybe from those ideas or vision he had for Benue to also champion a proper leadership recruitment for the current people.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to. That's the point I'm trying to lay.
Yes.
That leadership doesn't mean giving somebody a position alone. It also requires raising leaders is part of recruitment. And we have given examples.
Yes.
For example, Governor Otom was among the first one of the recruits, I would say recruits of Unongo's politics when he went to, he contested for the Guma chairmanship. He was Unongo's candidate. David Ionem was also Unongo's candidate. Adasu was also Unongo's candidate. In fact, he had asked me to invite Gemade to contest for governorship before, when Gemade turned down, he changed to.
So let me understand this very clearly.
Yes, yes.
You said Adasu was Unongo's candidate.
Yes.
So at what point did Unongo recruit?
Good, thank you.
At what point?
Good.
Yes.
Because I believe that if you're
explain.
a political leader.
Let me explain.
Let's allow him
Let me explain what happened.
tell us how it happened briefly, because we still have some grounds to capture before we conclude.
After was chosen, there was a dinner party that Paul hosted all the Reverend Fathers in the state with Bishop Usu in attendance. This is a secret, but now we can tell these secrets. So while after the party, Bishop Usu called Paul Nongu aside and told him that he was not pleased with Adasu's choice as the governor. He was his vicar general, that he was not pleased with his choice. And then he said, okay, if you don't like him as a choice, give me a choice that you like, that the church will work with. That's when Beta was brought in. Then Beta was the chairman of the Lady Council. That's when Beta came in. And Nongu had to leave Adasu. At this time, most of us went with Adasu because we had already asked him to make a commitment that should he change his mind, we will not change with him, we'll go with Adasu. So when Igbeta, Adasu, and Abu Shilwa went into the contest, Adasu and Beta tied. When they tied, that's when they prevailed on Abu Shilwa to cast his lot with Adasu. That's when the sobriquet of Shilwa became King is the answer. So that's when the change took place. That's when it changed.
Anyway, let's move away from that.
With that.
No, I'm not satisfied with it anyway. Because
that's what happened.
Because from the explanation you have given here, Wantare did not recruit Father Adasu for governorship. And we're talking about a deliberate policy on leadership recruitment, where you pick somebody as a mentor, as a mentor.
A mentee.
As a mentee.
Yes.
And then that person is mentored from gradual steps to the higher level. So where they just met accidental.
No,
Paul Nongu and Adasu just met accidental.
I wouldn't say it was an
and
accident.
he decided to support him.
No, look at the history.
So
the history
support is different from...
Yeah, the history is there. And the history is that he first recruited them to go to the Constituent Assembly.
No, he didn't recruit him.
Anyway, that is established. Let's move away from that. We'll take some few messages and we'll come back there. A few more concerns we'll look at and then try to conclude. This one says, good morning to you and the guests. Wantare Paul Unongo was a visionary leader who has always been at the forefront of espousing innovative ideas to transform Nigeria. Unongo was a leader and Democrat who dreamt of a strong and united Nigeria where everyone will be treated fairly. We lost a great leader. May his soul rest in peace. Amen. From Ko Ephraim in Welfare Quarters in Makudi. Ko, thank you for your message. Another one here says, good morning, presenter with your guest. Permit me to capture these few words in his last interview on Harvest FM Makudi. He said, this thing called corruption, there is horrible corruption in London Bridge, and there is horrible corruption in the Russian Federation. But that doesn't stop them from being in space. The corruption in Nigeria is too negative. Here, people steal money budgeted for healthcare why their people die of common malaria. Indeed, where do we go from here? Joe Kennedy from Makudi. Okay, Joe Kennedy, thank you for quoting Nongu's words on appearance. We appreciate you. Now, let's move away from some of the issues and focus a bit more on this week, where, of course, brief submissions now that I'll be trying to conclude. Nongu was a traditionalist to the core and still a Christian. How did he do this, Reverend Ichull?
Yes.
Because I remember at several fora he was pride himself as being the spiritual leader of the Tiv people.
And then he would go for Holy Communion as a canon.
Unongo was a man of many parts.
Okay.
Remember his name, Wantare. Wantare stems from the history of his birth. At birth, from what he told me, at birth he looked like a round ball. He looked like some formless person that should be thrown away. But an elderly person came and said, "No, don't throw this thing away. Keep this thing. This thing
was referred to as a thing.
Yes, thing. Yes, keep this thing. This is Wantare. Wantare means it's something like what the Spanish call mundi spiritus, something that represents spirit, something that is ubiquitous, something that is a universal child. A universal child. Like Senator Akume aptly described him as a globalist or a global person. That's the meaning of Wantare, a global person, the person of the world, the son of the world, as somebody that serves the interests of his people everywhere he goes. So as he grew older, like I told you earlier, I said he lived his life in phases. In the first phase, he came as an elite. He came as an educated person. He came as a sophisticated person.
All right, that is established. So,
but then then as he grew older, he went fully traditional.
Yes,
embracing tradition, wearing nyantswam, performing the traditional rites of his people. That's when he fully adopted his traditional.
And that leads me to asking you. He was protecting the culture of his people, and there was this aura of mysticism and spirituality around him. Did he actually possess mystic powers, spiritual powers?
From the point he made very good use of his psychology, of his study of psychology.
So it was all psychology.
Yes, so most of the things, you see, even artifacts and beliefs, they are coined by social psychologists. They may be uneducated, but they are social psychologists who can establish something and create consensus around it and create belief systems around it. And as a social crafter, he did that perfectly. Most of the things that he did were his own creations, were his own traditional creations. Because as a leader, if you want to bring people together, you give them something to hold on to, and you give them beliefs and also make them form consensus around those objects.
All right. We do not have time anymore, but Mr. Adom, what does the death of Unongo portend for the Tiv nation and Nigeria? Where do we go from here? In his words.
Unongo was a man of many parts.
This will be your concluding thoughts, briefly.
Unongo was a man of many parts, and I'm already sad that the time is already gone, but I actually wanted us to talk about his controversies. We cannot talk about Unongo without bringing his controversies into the talk. If we don't do that,
maybe talk about them briefly.
It will not be complete.
Exactly.
Because he actually assumed rules that were superimposed by himself. They were not given to him. For instance, he assumed the role of the leader of the chief elders and ancestors. I remember in 2011, 2011, he was blessing the then governor for re-election, and he said, through the instrumentality of the elders and ancestors of Chief Nation, I am blessing you.
Yes.
Whoever made him the representative of the ancestors, nobody knows. Whoever made him the leader of the elders of Chief Nation, nobody knows. But he assumed that role. There were so many things. We were even informed that at the launching for the building of the St. John's Hospital, Ojukwu came. That was in the 90s. And he was barefooted and he refused to shake Ojukwu, that if he shook hands with him, his manhood, the manhood of Ojukwu will go. And there were so many things that even if you're waiting for the man by the roadside to kill him, by the time he's close, you will just fall asleep and he will pass and go before you will discover. Yes. There were sayings that every year he would go to the hospital and he would change his blood, exchange his blood with that of one infant. Yes. So he was a man of many parts. So he even said that he made that boy, Akawe Tokola, the totiv in his room. That boy, that was how he described it. So to him, the leadership, the T traditional leadership was also answerable to him.
All right.
Yeah. So we are going to miss him a lot because his knowledge of thief cosmology and his practice of all of that, his political inclinations of being a progressive and all of that will be greatly missed. May he so rest in peace.
Amen. Reverend Ichull, what lessons are there to learn from the lifestyle of Unongo in 10 seconds? This will be your concluding
in 10
thoughts.
seconds, I can't miss this. Unongo's worst moment in his political life was when Benue Cement was taken away from Benue people. And any government, if any government wants to immortalize Paul Unongo's name, they should buy back Benue Cement from Dangote and give back to the people, because Unongo believed in ethnic economies, and Benue Cement was the representative sample of an ethnic economy. So the only thing you can do to immortalize Unongo's life is to bring back Benue Cement.
Reverend Peter Ichull is a public affairs analyst and a speech writer to the late elder statesman on whose life we focus today, the life and times of Paul Wantari Paul Yopu Nongu. Reverend Ichull, thank you very much for coming on Perspectives.
My pleasure.
Terver Adom is an author and a public affairs commentator and historical commentator as well. Chief Adom, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Dear listener, that's our program today. The elder statesman is asking Benue people and Nigeria, where do we go from here? Let us reflect on his legacies and the vision he lived for Nigeria. Join us next week, Monday, for a fresh edition of Perspectives. May God rest his soul. My name is Nathaniel. Goodbye.
Listening to Ihagh Radio 95.5.